Hello, my name is Mary Kate Sexton. My topic is physical therapy, and this is my original work research presentation. The content of today's speech will be an about me, a quote, research, and then my mentor and a conclusion. So first off, about me. So I basically have three main factors in my life, or most important things to me. And that would be my family, my faith, and also basketball. Of course, I love my friends too, but these are just my big three. And so, basically, on my family, I have a lot of brothers, and I have one sister. So she's the oldest. She's 28, and she's actually moving to Salt Lake for a new job. And then my brother Grady, he graduated from A&M, and he is in advertising, just like my dad actually. And then my brother Dugan, he's about to graduate from Southwestern University, and he's going to be going into law school actually. Then there's my brother Rory. He's at the University of Texas Tech, and he is majoring in business at the moment. And Garrett, he is a senior here at Wakeland High School. Then there's both of my parents, and they're both really big role models for me in my life. My dad, this is him right here, and like I said, he's in advertising. And then my mom, she's a stay-at-home mom. She's a great role model. She does a lot of things for us, and that's basically my family. And then I also have two dogs, Chloe and Maisie. So it's a big family, but it's always a lot of fun. Next is my faith. So I'm Catholic, and it's just always been a pretty big part of my life. I used to go to a private school actually back in Utah, and now we go to church every Sunday. It's a family thing. We're all there. Yeah, and it's just been a really big part of my life. Especially it helped me get through my ACL injury. So that is also one of the biggest parts and probably my inspiration for doing physical therapy as my topic. Initially, I wanted to do chiropractic actually, but after spending 9 months in physical therapy, I switched. I mean, I've always kind of wanted to be a doctor, and I took a couple medical classes freshman and sophomore year, but right off the bat, I knew I didn't want to be a surgeon, and it's just a little vivid for me, I guess you could say. But I did still want to do something in the medical field, and I figured that physical therapy could be my next best bet, and sure enough, it was. So, of course, I tore my ACL actually just around last year, around this time, and I had surgery, which is what this bottom picture is. And it was a difficult time for me, but my faith obviously helped me overcome that. My family, my friends, and just knowing that I would get to play basketball again, it all turned out well in the end. This is this year, and this is with two of the sophomores on our team, Charlotte and Kaylee. They're some of my really good friends along with the rest of my team. And then this is a picture from this year. So that is basically an about me. So this is my quote. It says, helping one person might not change the whole world, but it could change the whole world for one person. And I think that this is really applicable when it comes to the medical field in general, not necessarily just physical therapy. But that's because considering somebody who might have a back injury or a shoulder injury, whatever it may be, it kind of consumes you whenever you have an injury. It's something that you're always thinking about. And so I think that you really are changing somebody's world whenever they're not having to focus all of their energy and effort into that one thing. And yeah, so you're not doing something for the whole world maybe, but you really are helping somebody, and that's the biggest part. So for my research, this was the first portion of my research, and this was towards the beginning of the year, and I wanted to start off with what is your ACL. So your ACL is your anterior cruciate ligament, and it goes right across your knee. It's vital for stability in your knee. Like whenever I tore mine, you could really feel it kind of shift almost whenever you're walking. And mine tore all the way through, but it's a really big part. If you have a strain or a tear, it kind of takes it away. Most of the time, if you're not doing anything like athletic wise, like running, or if you're not really into that, you can get by with like a partial tear and just go to physical therapy. But if you are an athlete, it's recommended that you get surgery, and it speeds up the process. But with a strain, you can really just use physical therapy to get back to where you were. And I think that that's an option for a lot of people, but when it comes to fully tearing it, it's necessary to get surgery. So for I chose 3 articles that I wrote, three articles that I read. So the first one was the perceived influence of ACLR athletes. So obviously ACL stands for anterior cruciate ligament, and then the R is reconstruction. So this discussed common obstacles, motives, and mindsets for athletes who had come off of like their post-op from their ACL surgery. And so a common obstacle could be pain or like discomfort whenever you're coming back, whenever you're finding strength and mobility, things like that. It's really difficult. That could be a common obstacle for most people, or losing maybe your initial, like your progress that you've made necessarily. And then also motives. There was an example of a guy in this study, and he provides for his family through basketball because he is a professional athlete. And so he tore his ACL, but his motive to getting back to playing was because he had to provide for his family. So there are multiple different motives. It could be finding a sense of just established, So anyways, on to the next thing, mindsets. This is more of like mental toughness. And I actually read something the other day, and it was an abbreviation, but it said TMT, and that was true mental toughness. And that's what honestly a lot of athletes have to go through whenever they are recovering from a tear, surgery, whatever, but specifically ACL, because it's such a long process and it's really difficult to go through. And I think that it requires mental toughness for sure. So the next one was rehabilitation of muscles, ligaments, and tendons. And this kind of discussed the phases and the psychological aspect of that. So there were a couple phases to this, but just the main overall idea was that first you have to do things like RICE, and that's rest, ice, compression, and elevate. And that's basically to get down swelling. And once you've done that, obviously after surgery it takes a while, but at some point you will have recovered, and that's when you start increasing your range of motion, flexibility, things like that. So if you can't really move your knee that much, that's normally what you would start with, just like bending it up to like 90 degrees or whatever that is. And the goal is to get it to basically bend all the way. And then you would start with strength training and things like that, and building back your muscles, which is vital in your recovery process, because you're not really relying on your ligament at that point. You're relying on the muscles around it to build back your strength, to be able to walk around, to run, things like that. So it's just really important. And as I kind of mentioned earlier, the psychological aspect is super important to have, and it's honestly a struggle for a lot of people, I'm sure, but you're able to get through it, especially if you have the right support groups. And that's what also was mentioned in this article, is to have the right support group, family, friends, people around you, physical therapists, the community. It's really helpful whenever you're coming back from an injury like that. And then this was knee arthritis, and braces that benefit, hinder, and also individual needs. This one wasn't as, I didn't find it as valuable, but it was still helpful to get an overall view of different kinds of braces and things like that. So it was basically, obviously you could think of benefits that would be like support, offering stability for your knee. Hindering effects could be like bulkiness, it's sliding down your leg when you're working out, things like that. And individual needs, you can also get a personalized knee brace, which is what kind of fits your individual needs. You can find a brace honestly for anything. So the next thing I want to talk about was my research that was intended for my original work. And so this mainly focused, I wanted to do something, my initial goal was to make like a knee brace design for my original work, and that it didn't really turn out because I didn't find it as valuable or what I should do. I didn't think that was the best route for me. And so, but onto my research. So first in assessment 10, this was part 1. It was on innovations in functional and rehabilitative knee bracing. So this article really discussed lots and lots of different brands, and they all kind of focused on, they all came back to one thing, which was dynamic force. And there were a bunch of different types of knee braces, honestly, what they talked about. Like prophylactic braces. This is the one that I use when I play basketball, but onto more of that later, and that's a functional brace. And then, but they all went back to basically dynamic force. And that was when it was taking the force that you would normally be putting on a ligament and putting it into joints or muscles that are healthy and able to take the weight of it. And so that was really important, especially when you're coming back from an injury like that. And so on to the next one is assessment 11. So this is prophylactic. It was all about prophylactic and functional braces. And so I actually have a prophylactic brace for my basketball for when I'm playing. And I've read a lot about it, but honestly, it's just a mental safeguard. So it has no evidence to provide that it would be a preventative brace if you were to tear your ACL again. And so that's kind of scary, but also at the same time, it's like, you can re-tear anything again if, like, in any situation, honestly. But having the prophylactic brace is more of a mental safeguard, kind of an awareness thing for other people. And in my case, it would be other players on the court, just to watch out for that. And so then on to functional braces. So it actually is a more reliable brace, and that's this one right here. It has evidence to back up its preventative measures. It's more lightweight. As you can kind of see, this is wrapped around. It's really bulky and kind of uncomfortable, especially when the straps like aren't placed correctly. And then it offers more stability, and you have a wider range of motion because of the hinges here, and it can just help you more. And then assessment 12 is the mental battle. So this was on psychological effects of tearing a ligament, like I kind of discussed earlier. And the main contributor, it's a main contributor to returning to play. And so if you don't have the confidence, it's really difficult because you're always going to be worried or concerned on if you're going to re-tear your ACL again or anything else in your knee, which is a possibility for sure, but it's not worth it when you're sacrificing. And honestly, you're putting yourself more at risk if you're worried and your confidence level is lower, because it's just, you're more concerned about it and you're not playing as hard either. And then it also talked about kinesthesiophobia, and that's just the fear of re-injury. And so that's just a big contributor to this essay, or this article. So for my original work, obviously I discussed my research that I did, but on that I sent out a Google form for athletes in the district, and I actually used social media to reach a lot of them. So I posted it on my Instagram stories, my Snapchat stories. I reached out to the the women's director of Wakeland High School, and she sent it out across districts to other schools. And so that was really helpful. I got the responses I needed anyways, to make a data analysis. And so I created that. It's up here. This is the QR code to the Google form. But this is just the introduction and the conclusion of my data analysis. And I went through all the questions that I asked, and I basically determined what's the most important questions asked, how it would benefit me in building a brace design if I was going to do that still. And yeah, so I thought that this was great. It set me up for final work in what I need to do. Which I think I also have in there later, but if I want to, whatever I want to do for my final work, this has set me up for what I want. So on to the next thing. So my mentor is Dr. John Story. So on my first mentor visit, we discussed a plan of action, which is what is kind of what we're going about here, actually putting into action. And then we talked about patient respect. So that involves HIPAA, that involves not asking questions right in front of the patients, because a lot of the times they don't enjoy the answer, or maybe they won't, you never know, and you don't want to risk making them feel uncomfortable in a place where they should be comfortable and be able to be comfortable. Okay, and so on to the next. So observing. Basically that kind of goes along with the second one, is just observing what they're doing and then asking questions later. And that has to do with the fourth as well. So just put them off till the end, or whenever you have a moment with your mentor, out of respect for the patients. And so currently what we're doing now is, so I do research on the side, or like on an ankle, shoulder, knee, whatever it is, and then I bring those questions to him, because not everything you see on the internet is valid or reliable. You can't always just go off one source. So this is basically like a primary source that I can talk to about things. And then I'm still observing, and then I actually get to clean up now, which is fun. And that is kind of new, but it's I actually enjoy it because I get to be a part of something. And then also we are just starting to talk about final work. And so that is also exciting as well. But more of that to come later, because we haven't really gotten fully into that in ISM. Okay, so for my reflection. So my original goal was to create a knee brace or design through the information gained on the form and analysis. And I want to help athletes find confidence in their sport through the satisfaction of their brace. And this second part is still true, and I still would like that to happen, but obviously I did not create a knee brace design. And I am happy with my data analysis and my form, because it will set me up for whatever I'd like to do. My original question though was, why aren't braces beneficial in every aspect, which is kind of what I discussed already, like prevention, comfort level, things like that. And so, but it's honestly, and I also found an answer to that question, which was very helpful, but most braces focus on one aspect to function properly rather than overdoing it. And this can mean, like, if you have too many things going on, it can just get really bulky, and it's uncomfortable to play with. It's not going to help you at all. You're going to be thinking about your brace more than thinking about your sport, and that's not what the goal of what anybody would want, and that's not the point of a brace either. And then my current objective through my final work is to create a brace, either a brace design or a non-slip fabric based on the feedback that I received in my form, because that was honestly one of the most reported things. Like, athletes, they said that was like probably the worst thing for them, is that their brace slips down whenever they're playing. And so part of what I wanted to maybe be able to do is place a removable piece of fabric that you can put in any type of brace, and that way it will prevent it from slipping down while you're playing. That's all I have today. Thank you for listening.